Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. The victory lap President Biden and his media sycophants are taking, giving Biden credit for averting a rail strike, continues, and the slobbering affection of the media is pretty horrendous. But the truth is, Biden might have just set himself up to look like a really, really big idiot once there is a strike. Before we get to that, let's play a clip from 60 Minutes, who showered President Biden with affection for his role in, quote, averting a major rail strike.
Mr. President, you have just averted a nationwide railroad strike that would have been crippling to the economy. How did you do that? And what were those last hours like in the negotiations?
Well, look, we brought business and labor together. One of the things that happens in negotiations, particularly if they've been elongated like these have, is people say and do things where their pride gets engaged as well. And it's awful hard to back off of some of these things. So what we did was just say, look, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what's happening. You have a good deal being made for labor. Their income's going to go up 24% over the next 5 years. They've worked out the health care piece. They worked out days off. They both sat down, in my view, and they were in the office today saying, well, we finally figured out this is fair on both sides. And it took that time to focus. And the alternative was just not thinkable.
What do you mean?
If, in fact, they'd gone on strike, the supply chains in this country would have come to a screeching halt. We would have seen a real economic crisis.
Two things that are important. One, he claims it's fair to workers and a good deal for railroad workers that they are getting unpaid days off to go see a doctor. So that's apparently fair, that they won't be paid if they have to go see a doctor. And he cites the 24% increase number that obviously the rail carriers are citing and the media was citing. Well, you talk to rail workers, for many, that's actually a pay cut when you factor in inflation, the consumer price index, the amount of money being taken out of their paychecks for healthcare contributions. So it's not really a pay increase when you factor in all those things. So Biden is tossing out there that this is a good deal for labor. Well, if you look underneath the hood, it seems like they rushed through an announcement of a deal before the actual agreement was even fully formed. This is from Jonah Furman, a great labor reporter with Labor Notes. According to one union official, the BMWE, one of the largest rail unions, told General Chairman they didn't have actual agreement language as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, meaning yesterday. Marty Walsh, the labor secretary, tweeted about the deal at 5 a.m. BMWE ballots are supposed to go out on Tuesday. So essentially, the labor secretary tweeted at 5 a.m. that there was a deal, but one of the largest rail unions told their chairman they didn't even actually have the agreement language as of 3 o'clock Eastern. To me, all signs are they didn't actually have a fully written terms of an agreement, even written, but Biden, with a heavy hand, said, we need to go public right now before the stock market collapses, before there's an all-out panic, and the economy craters, which obviously wouldn't be good considering it's a month and a half till the midterms. His approval rating has been ticking up slightly, and all they care about right now is the midterms, not the actual railroad workers being exploited, working in very unsafe conditions, I spoke with a gentleman yesterday saying that he could work at any given time 30 to 40 straight hours, having threats of being fired for going to a doctor, et cetera, et cetera. Seems to me that this was rammed down the throats of the unions, and the unions folded, saying, sure, you could announce there's a tentative agreement, even though it's likely our workers are probably going to vote it down. And that's the next part of this. It is likely that workers are going to vote this down based on a few workers I spoke with yesterday, and more reports you're seeing just from railroad workers on what they're hearing is in this deal, because a lot of the workers in the unions haven't even seen the terms of the deal yet. Anecdotal, of course, but this is just on the Facebook page of Brotherhoods of Maintenance and Way employees. Why is our union posting this like this is some kind of game-changing deal? One day is laughable. We need to strike, meaning 1 day of paid sick leave they're getting. The paying members didn't agree to this, and better pay was demanded also. No, no, no. We wanted paid sick leave days, not unpaid. Now we still have to come to work sick because we need a paycheck. So they got unpaid days off. They're going to vote this down. Let's be clear. The union wanted 15 paid sick leave days off a year. Right now, they don't have any. They wanted 15 paid sick leave days off. This great deal for labor that Biden is talking about, the rail carriers, greedy CEOs who are making record profits, gave them one sick day when the union's position was we want 15. This is what the media and President Biden are trying to sell as some victory for railroad workers. Complete joke. Let me play a clip from an interview yesterday with Gabe Christensen. He is a railroad worker, and you just get a taste for what's really going on here.
I have vacation days. I have personal leave days, but unless you prearrange them, they don't let you use them. And where I work, there's 60 members, and they allow one prearranged day for that calendar day. So you may have 60 people fighting to get that 1 day. Not being fired for taking a day off to go to the doctor. I'd like to see how that's going to work. We used to be able to take a week off with no retribution from the company and everything. We worked a lot, but we had the ability to take a week off to go to the doctor, do whatever we needed to, and that was always unpaid as well. So over the last few years, they've been really tightening up on letting us take time off, and it's just in an effort to keep fewer people on the payroll to maximize their profits. We started out asking for 15 paid sick days a year, which I don't think is too much to ask. A lot of other places have more. And then in bargaining in good faith, they just asked for 15 non-compensated days. And it seemed like the carriers weren't budging on anything. The political aspect of it, I've been asked quite a few times if we were worried about affecting the midterm elections or anything like that. And if we do, we do. We need our politicians to stand with blue collar workers and union workers. They need to stand with labor. And if they're not, then let's affect the elections. We need to vote. We need to make sure that they stand with us.
So think about that. Biden is on 60 Minutes trying to sell this as a good deal for labor. Labor came, we want 15 days of paid sick leave. Then when the railroad companies, who I'm about to get to their greediness, wouldn't budge, then the unions back down. All right, we want that many days and unpaid. So as always, unions accepting whatever crumbs they could get from the corporations. And then it got whittled down to one paid sick leave. Still no major reform with scheduling, which was a major problem among railroad workers I spoke with. And if you want to know how much money that these corporate scum are making, that Biden is now really running cover for. I mean, as a major rail, this is from The Lever. As a major rail strike looms, rail executives have been reluctant to meet worker demands for better pay, benefits, and time off. At the same time, the CEOs of 5 of the largest railroad conglomerates have been paid more than $200 million in the last 3 years. And company shareholders have been boosted by nearly $200 billion in stock buybacks and dividends over the last dozen years. A 6th railroad giant is controlled by billionaire Warren Buffett, whose net worth jumped 50% during the pandemic to $100.1 billion. Buffett earlier this year bragged to shareholders about huge earnings even after accounting for worker pay. Quote, Your railroad had record earnings of $6 billion in 2021, he gushed in his annual letter. Here, it should be noted, we are talking about the old-fashioned sort of earnings that we favor, a figure calculated after interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and all forms of compensation. The rail industry has defended the gap between worker pay, executive payouts by arguing that workers haven't contributed to their skyrocketing profits. Quote, the companies maintain that capital investment and risk are the reason for their profits, not any contribution by labor, a recent federal report noted. Besides the galling immorality of that statement, clearly it's wrong because the economy was about to collapse a day ago if these workers went on strike, i.e. labor. So obviously you can't have any of those profits if the workers go on strike. And that brings us to the final point. You know, the media is slobbering over Joe Biden, claiming that he averted a railroad strike. Honestly, it's not clear that he has avoided a railroad strike. I spoke with a few workers, both on camera and off camera yesterday. The tea leaves that I'm reading is there's going to be some type of railroad strike because this tentative agreement was not voted on yet. This tentative agreement was of the union heads. If you're in a union, you know that often there's a huge gap between the union bosses, a lot of whom are corrupt, and the mood and sentiment among the rank and file union voters. So they did this, you know, spike the football. We averted a strike when this likely is going to get struck down and voted down by the members. Jonah Furman again. I basically think everyone has misjudged the story, and we're going to see a short rail strike at some point before the midterms. Take it for the armchair QB prediction that it is. He goes on to say, lots of members are mad. Some leadership votes, whether to even send it out for a membership vote, were close or contentious. It only takes one of these 12 unions to reject it and walk to trigger a serious disruption, and at least some of the others will honor picket lines. You're talking, depending on how many of these unions of the 12 go on strike, I mean, you could have tens of thousands of workers on strike, which would be an incredible thing to cover, by the way. I would love to cover that. But I think Biden just set himself up to look fairly stupid, fairly arrogant, and most importantly, potentially a railroad strike weeks before the midterm elections that could crater the economy, which he'll get blamed for. And of course, the media would then blame the workers. Well, you got your 24% increase, which they're not going to mention, accounting for inflation, consumer price index, healthcare costs coming out of their pocket isn't really an increase. They're not going to mention the fact that railroad workers at times are working 30 to 40 straight hours. They're not going to mention the unsafe conditions. They're not going to mention the fact that these companies, while greasing up their billions of dollars in stock buybacks and compensation, have been laying off workers to do more with less. They're not going to mention the fact that these railroaders have no family life. And they're not going to mention that, yeah, as with the rest of America, this time off for medical appointments is unpaid. Well, what if you have a medical emergency where you have to take off a significant amount of time? Unpaid, sorry. This is what Biden is trying to sell as good for labor. I think there's a very strong chance that they're going to vote this down. To refresh your memory, John Deere, which we went to Iowa and covered the picket lines last year, the workers on strike, there was a tentative agreement reached at first between John Deere and the unions, and the rank and file voted it down. So that very likely could happen here again. And at this point, I hope it does. Yeah, there would be some pain in the economy if the trains don't run. But you want to know what? Maybe some people need to feel some pain, particularly comfortable upper middle class people, to realize the exploitation happening underneath them so goods can come to market. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.